the Book Baron. Welcome in, everybody. If you're new here, my name is Baron, and today we're doing my January reading plans, which honestly is kind of a little bit of spring cleaning. It's a little too early for spring cleaning, but it's spring cleaning of my TBR. I realized I've had a bunch of books on there for a while, or I've been like putting off reading them for various reasons. Honestly, there's just so many that have been on my TBR for like years now, and I just haven't read them. So I wanted to get them cleared off my TBR. One, because I'm in the mood for stuff I used to read like maybe a couple of years ago, so you're gonna see some more Mafia romance. But also there's a lot of like popular books that I kind of put off because I was seeing a lot about them, and now that the hype's kind of died down about them, I'm a little bit more interested in reading them. So there's that. So that's a lot of what I'm planning to read. Kevin is kind of running around in the room here. He's got some pretty bad allergies, so you might hear him sneeze or cough on occasion, so just a heads up, you might hear that. He's going to the vet after this because the poor man is not doing well, so sorry if you hear any of that. But without further ado, let's jump into the books. Okay, first up is one that I've been so intrigued by, but a combination of things have kind of held me back, and it's The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia. It says that this is a first book in a series, but I, for whatever reason, cannot figure out from Goodreads if it's supposed to be an interconnected series, or this would be more of a standalone, or if this is a proper series, because there's no other books out yet, so I can't even like use the character names as like a point of reference to try and like suss it out. I have no idea. So just be forewarned, I have no idea if there's going to be a cliffhanger at the end of this bad boy or what. It's a paranormal historical romance, and I believe the paranormal element is vampires. So this is set in Victorian London. Aliana, I never know how to pronounce that name, is a botanist who has a particular interest in poisoning. I guess those things kind of go hand in hand back in the day. She likes to poison men in her own brand of justice, so she kind of picks off the guys that suck. So she's a little bit of a vigilante, but she has a little bit of a failed attempt in the form of Silas Forbes, who is this like playboy that he's like a little bit full of himself, and she tries to get him, but the next week when she's out running errands doing poisoner business, she sees him at the apothecary that she's at, and she's like, hold on a second, that's not supposed to be happening. I watched you die. But, you know, you can't kill something that's already dead, can you? So, you know, there's a reason it didn't quite work out the way she wanted to. But these two kind of end up making this unlikely pair, and it gets like the upper crust of society's tongues wagging. They're very curious about why these two are hanging out together. Now, if I remember correctly from some of the stuff I've seen over on Instagram promoting this, I believe she tests out her poisons on him, and in exchange, she like feeds him and becomes his personal blood bank or something like that. I don't know if that's for sure because it didn't say that in the blurb, but I seem to remember that from some of the stuff I've seen on Instagram. As you've probably gathered, I've seen a lot about this on my Instagram, which is part of what piqued my interest. Also, the cover is really intriguing because it's so simple, and yet it's kind of got this like seductive nature to it. It's interesting because normally when I see a lot about a book on Instagram, it's usually something that's really hyped, but this one seems to be a little bit more like polarizing. Well, not even polarizing. It's not like people are one-starring it. What I'm seeing a lot of is 5 stars where people are like, this is my new favorite. I absolutely love this. And then there's a lot of people that rate it 3 stars and they're like, this was pretty boring. So I want to figure out where I fall on that scale. And also, like, I just haven't read anything with any sort of historical setting. I've mentioned it before. I've kind of been in a paranormal mood lately. I just haven't found like the right book. So I'm hoping that this is going to be like the one that strikes my fancy. Next up, we have a very popular one, and yes, I am this late to the game. It's Mafia Mistress by Mila Finelli. So this is the first in an interconnected series. It's a dark mafia romance, and it has a pretty substantial age gap. So Francesca is arranged to marry a mafia don's son over in Italy, but somehow ends up attracting his father instead of the son, and then the father, because he is the king of the mafia, or the mafia don over here, he can just take what he wants. So he's like, sold. I know I said I was going to set you up with my son, but actually, you're coming with me instead. And Francesca might seem like a pawn, but from the blurb, it sounds like maybe she's got a little bit more going on. Like maybe she's got a plan, something up her sleeve. She's willing to go along with this ruse, or more or less, in order to keep her plans. So I don't know what that's about, but I'm excited to find out. The reason I wanted to read this one is Mila Finelli, if you don't know, is a pen name for Joanna Shoup, and she is one of the very few historical romance authors that I really like. I just tend to really enjoy her writing style, and I think if I already like her writing style when she does historical, and dark romance tends to be more my speed, I'm thinking when these two things meet up, it should be a winner. Also, I see a lot about this book. I know a lot of people say it's one of their favorite mafia romances. So I'm excited to check this one out and just see like if this is a new favorite series. And like I said, I'm really curious what Francesca's got up her sleeve, like what her plan is. And this is one of those books, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that I've been meaning to read this one for a really long time. It's one of those that I see the cover and immediately like I almost get embarrassed that I haven't read it already, but I just haven't been in the mood. But this is the month. This is the month that I am going to read it, especially because I've been on a bit of a mafia kick more recently. Right. Next up, I have for you Untouchable by Sam Mariano. So this is a standalone. It's a dark high school bully romance, and I think there's probably some elements of sports. My understanding is that the heroine ends up getting a star football player suspended from school because he was harassing her. This is set in a small Texas town, and if you don't know anything about Texas, one, everything's bigger there, but also two, Texas loves football. It doesn't matter if we're talking peewee through college, NFL they're not as much into. You don't mess with that. And so obviously, this whole situation just doesn't really go over that well with her peers, or probably anyone in the community, if we're being honest. It's a small town. So this means that her senior year ends up being filled with pranks and harassment and name calling, and you name it, they've done it to her. It sounds like she's pretty happy that she made this call. She's glad that she stood up for herself, but it's making things tough. And this is how she, unfortunately, ends up attracting the attention of the star quarterback, Carter. Now, his attention is quite coveted because he has this charisma, he's very attractive, obviously he's the star quarterback, but this is a very carefully constructed facade, and because she unfortunately is in a position where no one wants to believe her, she has already reported another football player. You think they're gonna believe her when she says their golden boy is going after her? Probably not. So she's the perfect target for the beast that is inside him. Towards the end of last year, if you've been around, I went on a bit of a tear with Sam Mariano's books, specifically the Irreparable Damage Duet and the Morelli Family series. I just like burned through that. They're so bingeable. I have been wanting to read more from Sam Mariano, but I've been doing so much travel in the last like half of last year that I knew that I just wasn't going to have the time to dedicate to this book the way I wanted to. And this one's like a little bit on the longer side. So I really wanted to be able to give this one like my full attention. And good news is I don't have a single plane ticket booked, and I could not be happier about that. And I know that the winter blues are going to start setting in January. So I was like, this is perfect. This is one that I feel in every fiber of my being is going to be a 5-star. And I also know it's one of Nikki's favorites. So now's the time. Now's the time to read this bad boy. All right, this one's a curveball. I don't know. No, I know. Would it be helpful if I told you the title of it and then you can have your little moment? Great. Okay, One Pucked Up Pack by Sarah Blue. So this is a first in an interconnected series. It's Omegaverse, Why Choose, and sports romance. Charlotte is just about ready to graduate college, but over her winter break, she ends up finding her pack of alphas in sort of a whirlwind romance. This is like the ultimate dream, right? But the thing is, they're all hockey players, so they're getting drafted and sent all over the country. So whatever they're developing now, it's going to have to be long distance, which is already hard. She's got abandonment issues from my understanding. And then that also means like they're just not there for the important things in life. And since she knows that they're never going to choose her over their love of hockey, she's kind of sick of playing second fiddle. So she just decides that she's going to try and move on. She's going to try and forget them. But they are willing to do whatever it takes to prove that they're the right alphas for her. So that's going to be a little bit harder than she initially anticipated. I haven't read Omegaverse in like a hot minute. I don't tend to read a ton of it, but I do like it for a good palate cleanser. But it's one that's been on my list, my to-be read list for a while. And I've also heard just really good things about Sarah Blue in general. When I hear people talk about Omegaverse in general, her name comes up quite a bit. There's usually at least one of her books or series that are on people's list of favorites. And my library just acquired a copy of this audiobook. So I think I'm going to use this one as kind of like a palate cleanser between books. Like that it sounds like it's going to be like a little bit emotional, but it's mostly, more than likely, going to be a little bit fluffy, a little bit wish fulfillment, a little bit spicy. So I'm excited to check out Sarah Blue, see if she is an Omegaverse author that I like. Honestly, I've heard nothing but excellent things about her writing, so I'm really excited to give her a go. Next up, we have another Mafia one, and it's bound by honor by Cora Riley. So this is an interconnected series, and this is dark Mafia romance. Arya is sort of like a Mafia princess to a Chicago family, and she's primarily known for her stunning good looks. Now, like most Mafia families, in books anyway, she is going to be a part of an arranged marriage, and this marriage is going to bring peace between two rival Mafia families, one in Chicago and the other in New York. Now, this means that her future husband is going to be Luca, who is the future capo of the New York Mafia family. But he is kind of known for being brutal, even amongst his own family. I guess there was an incident with a cousin that got a little handsy in the neck region, and Arya's absolutely terrified, even though he's like one of the most sought after bachelors in New York City because he's got his good looks, he's got the money, he's got the charisma, much like the hero from Sam Mariano's book. Yeah, the monster she knows about that. That's not a mystery to her. So she's got a little bit of a game plan, because she's going to have to live with this guy for like the rest of her life. So she's like, I need to figure out how to gain his affection. She's going after it because there's no escaping this arrangement. I know that this is a really loved Mafia series. I've been putting it off for some time now. When I was seeing and hearing a lot about it, because it kind of went through a resurgence, was around the time that I kind of put Mafia romances down. I wasn't having very good luck. Like, I knew this one was popular. I guess I did not realize how popular it was, though, because this has over like 100,000 ratings on Goodreads. I was really shocked by that. But I'm ready for something that's really gonna like pull me in. I'm hoping this is like a new Mafia series that I can binge. They're a little bit on the shorter side, which is perfect, especially for Mafia, because I feel like that keeps them a little bit faster paced. And I'm looking for something that's written pre-2020. I've just been finding that those types of books tend to hit a little bit better for me because there's not as much focus on trying to shove a bunch of tropes into the book. So I'm hoping that this is going to be one that works. Plus, I love arranged marriage or marriage of convenience when it comes to Mafia romances. I just think that that's such a fun element, both of them trying to figure out how to make it work, but also he's brutal. That's just fun. And I'm trying to remember, I think I've read another book from Cora Riley, or is that someone else? I read Sweetest Temptation, and now I don't remember if that's Cora Riley or not. If not, I'm going to cut this part out because I'm an idiot. But I did read that one and really enjoyed her writing. There were a few like weird quirks, but I remember that one was pretty low stakes, so I'm looking for something like a little bit darker, and it sounds like this series should fit the bill. And I do have some like other bigger books that are going to be on my TBR, so I'm thinking that this is going to be a good one to help me kind of like keep up my momentum with reading. Next up is a book that I'm actually currently reading, but I'm not going to finish in time for my December wrap-up, which is coming after this video, by the way. It's God of War by Rena Kent. So this is the 6th book in an interconnected series. I think this one is technically 2nd gen, but it's a dark new adult romance, and it has a marriage of convenience, amnesia. So Ava and Eli have known each other since they were quite young. They're old family friends. Ava is a little bit of a party girl. She'll sister up trouble with a little bit of drinking, a little bit of dancing, but her first and primary love is her cello. She ends up participating in a competition that kind of goes wrong. It doesn't go the way she wanted it to. She froze up on stage. And so she's gonna dance the night away in order to kind of like forget her problems. But who should be there but Eli, the man that on her 17th birthday rejected her very brutally and told her in no uncertain terms that she needed to get over her puppy love and obsession with him because it was embarrassing. So they have had a very antagonistic relationship ever since. She loves to stir up shit in his life and cause trouble because she was so hurt by what he said. And this night is no different. Eli comes in, he starts harassing her, telling her to go home, to clean up her act. So she drinks even more, goes off the rails, and decides that she's gonna drive herself to an after party that her friends are going to. When she's driving, she ends up noticing that someone is following her, and she calls the police. And the last thing that she remembers is talking to the police officers while she spins out and sees headlights. She wakes up 2 years later in the hospital very confused. She's not in the hospital because of that car accident. Something else happened. It's now 2 years later, and Eli is in there fluffing her pillows and asking her when she wants to go home because it turns out that they're married. She doesn't know why she married this man because he is still very cold towards her. So I do not remember whose video I was watching. I feel like I've seen it on a couple of videos. This was on someone's best of the year list, or maybe it was on Instagram. It doesn't matter. The point is, I've been seeing this book a lot, and honestly, everyone talks about this series. And when I heard that it has the amnesia trope, which is one of my favorites, I downloaded this book immediately and started reading it. So funny enough, Shelby from Spicy Book Talk posted shortly thereafter about how she also loves the amnesia trope. So I was like, I'm not alone. I actually don't remember the last time that I read that. Oh, how fitting. Forgetting when the last time I read an amnesia trope. But I think it was Corinne Michaels, help me remember. But I just love the mystery of the heroine having to put together what's happened to her and the period of time that she doesn't remember. Why doesn't she remember it? Trying to talk to the people in her life and them maybe being a little bit disconnected from her. So she's really trying to dig and read between the lines and find clues, and also maybe getting like little flashes, little glimpses of something that's happened. One thing I do want to mention though is this is my third attempt to read Rena Kent. I've had very mixed luck thus far. I DNF'd God of Malice during the prologue. I did not get very far on it. So I had kind of sworn her off because I was like, I just don't think she's for me. And then I read God of Fury, which is the romance in the same series. And I was like, this is amazing. I love this. Also so sad. It's got some like mental health rap in that one, and that one's intense. So this is the book that technically I think follows directly after God of Fury. I'm hoping I just needed to join up with Rena like a little bit later in her writing journey, and then maybe this is where we become friends. We'll see if this one's a winner, and you know what? Maybe if this one works out, I'll go back and give God of Malice a go. I think that might have been a case of it was like maybe a fine book, wrong time. I don't know. I'm completely speculating about a book that's not even on this TBR. Why am I doing that? Let's move on. All right, last one that I have is Shadowland Omega by Elizabeth Stevens. So this is the second book in the Beast of Gadamora series. And I don't know with this one as well if this is considered interconnected. Ma'am? Am I having a stroke? What just happened? I don't know if this is interconnected or if this is a proper series, because technically this follows a different couple than the first book in the series, but I think there's an overarching plot that you would be missing if you skip the first book. I'm gonna say it's a proper series, read it in order. That's what I'm going with, final answer. So this is a dystopian Omega-verse. This is just MF though, not White Shoes, and it's got fantasy elements as well. The heroine has had misfortune befall her. So her family has been thrown in the dungeons for treason by Lord Yaren, who is a berserker and lords over the lands that she lives in. Potentially because she is their most recently ascended Omega. Omegas are rare. It seems that he has maybe spared her from that same fate. Against Yaren's better judgment, he finds that he's turning to her. I mean, she is a peasant. He's a lord. She has a traitorous family. It's not really someone he should be associating with. But he needs to figure out this danger that seems to be encroaching on his territory. There's rumors of this sinister magic and the undead coming back to life and witches afoot. And as her power over flame increases and these sinister forces are drawing closer, Yaren is finding that he is having to turn to her to help save Gadamora or risk the entire place burning down. This was one of my most anticipated reads for 2024. Unfortunately, when I decided to pick this bad boy up was in the height of my slump where I could not find a single book that would satisfy my interest. So I think I read maybe 10 pages of this and then was like, oh no, I don't want to hate this book. I didn't even mark it as a DNF. I was just like, I just need to set this aside because clearly this is not the right time. Not the right time for this book. I know I love this author. I know I love this series. And if it's not driving right now, I just need to come back to it. I think what threw me off is that although this is taking place in the same world as the first book, the beginning of this book feels completely different. The other book, we are in Trash City, so it's very dystopian feeling. This one almost had like a historical fantasy kind of feel to it when I first like jumped in, and I was like, wait a second, isn't there technology? It was like, it kind of threw me off. I am definitely in the mood for it now. I know what I'm getting into this time, so that definitely helps. And also I'm really excited because I mentioned this on Instagram, so sorry if I'm regaling you with the same tale, but Elizabeth Stevens is a local Seattle author. She had dropped off a couple signed copies of her books at a bookstore that I like to go to. But when I saw the post, I was out of state. I wasn't around. So I was like, dang it, I'm not gonna get a copy. I was pretty bummed. I was like excited for the bookstore to get those copies and whoever ended up purchasing those books. But I was bummed because I was like, oh, I wanted it to be me. But I ended up being in the area when I returned back from my trip and I was like, I'm just gonna pop in. I'm just gonna see. And I snagged the one copy of Shadowland Omega because I already have the Dark City Omega book signed. I have like a probably smut edition of it, I think. I was really excited that I was able to get Shadowland also signed. That's just, made me so excited. But I'm actually currently reading this one and God of War. But like I said, with God of War, I'm not gonna finish either of these by the end of December. They're not gonna make it in that December wrap up. But you can for sure expect these ones in the January wrap up. Those are all the books that I have for you. And the sun has just decided to come out and grace us with its presence. Sorry if the lighting was a little bit wonky on this one. The sun is going in and out from behind clouds, so not a ton I can do. I did try and angle us so I would get more light this time around. But you know how it goes. The sun can't be told what to do and nor can the clouds. So sometimes we just have to suffer with weird lighting. With all of that, thank you so much for being here and spending part of your day with me. I would love to hear what you're kicking off January with. What are you reading right now? Are there any books that you're really excited to get to this month? Are there any new releases that you're excited for that are coming out this month? I would love to hear any and all of it. What's your reading looking like? And don't forget to like this video if you did end up liking it, and subscribe if you would like to see more of my face. Or if you keep watching my content and keep forgetting to subscribe, it's okay, no judgment, but like maybe hit that subscribe button. I don't know. Let's be friends. And I really, really hope that I see you on my next video. Bye-bye.